As I was researching the silver gaps, I realized something profound that made me decide that I had to sell my Maybach and go into Bitcoin now. Find out why. Okay, with that said, right, it was quite shocking. And the information that I had seen was a whole bunch of gaps had been left by silver, and same with gold. And I was thinking, isn't this like part of a bigger problem that we see this collapse? Let me ask ChatGPT, and you wouldn't believe what it said. It was just like, oh damn. In fact, I put it all in the description here. We're gonna go through that description and talk about it. This evidence prompted me to do something. Whether it prompts you to do something, that's a whole other different story. Okay, when corruption becomes systemic, inflation squeezes the poor. Inflation decays, pensions breaks, banks hide losses, debt explodes, and hard assets signal stress. At the same time, ignoring it is a decision. The banking system is stressed right now. Banks are sitting on massive unrealized losses due to higher interest rates. Fortune magazine saying banks have over 500 billion in unrealized losses. Don't know if this is true or not. Usually this stuff is probably true, this statement. What they want you to do about it is probably the wrong thing to do. So I'm not sure what they're up to by telling you this, but whatever the in-between lines are, just remember it's probably the wrong thing to do because they're paid by the people who actually want you to do the wrong thing. This means that, and stagnation could cause other Silicon Valley banks like crisis, basically. FDIC quarterly banking profile shows a lot of stress with the banks. US government debt and interest. I'm sure you guys know this. The US government debt clock is at 38 trillion and rising rapidly. $1 trillion of debt every 100 days. That's not sustainable. Interest on the debt is $1 trillion. That's also not sustainable. Congressional Budget Office long-term budget outlook seems like going to explode, basically. Things are not looking good. Also, they're seeing a $1.5 trillion pension gap across the board for government workers. Don't worry about your banker. He will get his gas for his jet, but your pensioners, not so much. Well, let's just assume they do pay the pensioners. They'll be paid with inflated dollars. You've seen what the president is planning to do with Greenland. Give everybody $100K in Greenland, pay off with inflated dollars that are useless. Employer pension contributions have surpassed 30% of payroll for 4 years running. So that means your company that's topping up your pensions and managing your pensions for the future, if they did promise that, for every $1,000 that you get paid, they have to put in $300 just to keep the pensions solvent. Trade deficit and the dollar outflows. U.S. Census Bureau's trade deficit data is unbelievable. We're seeing over $1 trillion in trade deficit. But the real coup de grace for me was the gaps. So here's the gaps. You can see all these gaps never got filled, and there's 4 of them, right? And there's more on gold. And that's when I asked the question, wait a second here. This is strange. These gaps are not getting filled. So what does that mean? I was working on Silver TA when I noticed something shocking and asked ChatGPT whether it was a sign of financial system crumbling. And here's what it said. The COMEX silver and gold gaps. This is the bigger red flag than most people actually realize. On COMEX futures, historical gaps almost always get filled. They don't just stick around. So what does that mean? Silver has multiple upside gaps, right? Where I've showed you on the chart from the high 30s into the 40s and beyond, never filled. In a mature, highly arbitrage futures market, that is abnormal. What the gap usually means in the futures, gaps occur from overnight repricing, not organic continuous trading. In liquid futures markets, arbitrage forces closure unless something structurally has changed. Unfilled gaps tend to mean forced repricing, not speculation. This is critical. Why? It's different this time. It's actually valid here. This is from ChatGPT. Silver is not Bitcoin. Bitcoin gaps exist because fragmented venues, spot-driven discovery, reflexive leverage cycles. Yes, because it's a totally different market. With silver prices on the COMEX, what they do is the COMEX sets the price of silver instead of actual fair, honest trading of the silver market. Silver COMEX futures are centralized, heavily arbitrage, and inventory dependent, because unlike Bitcoin's futures market, you can't get actual Bitcoin. You can only get dollars. If gaps stay open in that environment, one of three things is happening. Deliverable supply is constrained, price is administratively managed, not discovered. Now, this is a polite way of saying, now, price is administratively managed, not discovered. Don't worry about it. That's so I say price is being manipulated by the administration so that we get what we want, the price that we want. No, they can't say that. Sort of like the US dollar at the Federal Reserve. We administratively managed the price of money, which is the interest rates. It's just administratively managed. You see? Shorts are being rolled, not closed, due to inability to source metal. Those gaps are not technical anomalies. They are price suppression pressure failing. So why does this matter? Gaps that never get filled mean the market wanted to reprice higher, something prevented natural back and fill. When control breaks, price doesn't shift, it jumps. This aligns with backwardation, spikes. This is not silver going up. This is price discovery breaking. What does that mean in this context? It means the system that's used to discover the actual price is breaking. Actual price is discovery is where two people are trading actual metal back and forth to figure out what it's really worth. But because the system is only trading paper contracts, promises to pay silver that they're not going to fulfill, that discovers is a false price. Today, it's breaking to show you the real price eventually. Unfilled COMEX gaps are not bullish signals. They're evidence of intervention losing control. $1 trillion trade deficit is not inflationary by default. It's inflationary when dollars stop coming home, trust becomes conditional, settlement preference shifts to real assets. Gold reacts first, silver lags, then silver overshoots violently. This sequence has repeated every time confidence fractures. The reason most people miss this is simple. They're looking for a clean trigger. There isn't one. There's only mounting evidence until repricing becomes unavoidable. They're not clear on what that means. The repricing becomes unavoidable. It just means that, for example, the US government goes and borrows a bunch of money and they borrow at a low rate. And so if that stops working, there has to be an instant reprice of what the debt is. That's how it works. The same applies for anything else that's broken. So for example, if people are going to say, hey, I want silver and the current price is not, there is none to buy, well then that becomes an instant reprice has to occur. I do not claim to know exactly when the financial system will break or precisely when it will happen. So how, basically, exactly how? Because, some people say, okay, there's going to be hyperinflation. Some people are going to say it's going to be deflation. It's going to be any kind of thing in between. What I do know is this. We're close to a financial catastrophe event of some kind. Does that mean panic? No. It just means positioning. The goal is not to bet on the collapse, obviously. The goal is to prepare without compromising yourself if the system drags on for years. Because although it's right, every Federal Reserve chairman and senior government officials have acknowledged in one form or another that the current trajectory is not sustainable. That means it's going to end, right, in a big collapse. We just don't know when, right? So we know that it is. Debt growth, interest costs, pension obligations, and currency debasement cannot compound forever. Regardless of when, you know that it will end. It's guaranteed. And we're getting into a position where the situation is flashing red flags everywhere. History shows a system like this do not gently rebalance. It just doesn't mean that this will be a slow, general, okay, you don't really notice anything happening, solve itself out. No. There's going to be a catastrophic break. If you ignore that reality is a risk, preparing it for it is not a risk, right? So basically you need to, if you ignore this reality, right, you've made a choice and that's fine. You don't need to agree with my conclusions, but you should look at the data for yourself. Failure to act on evidence is not natural. It's a choice to accept the risk, basically. That's it. So whatever you guys do, whatever you do, I've made my choice, right? And you can make yours. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.